Today we've got Jo, who's kindly going to take us through the reconciliation and reporting section of our service charge feature. Before she kicks off, I'll just remind you, we also have another webinar scheduled for the 22nd of April. This is going to be covering the new mobile features and also the best practices that we see. If you didn't see also yesterday, I sent out an email with a bunch of useful content for how the property industry is going to be navigating through COVID-19. And then we've got podcasts, webinars, articles, and quite a few other things. In this, we also have an Easter treat that we're sending out to you. We're going to be running free Pilates sessions, which should be really fun. So we'd like you to join us and just jump into the email from yesterday for all the registration links. So Jo, I'll hand it over to you.
Okay, so what we are going to cover today is service charge, specifically looking at rolling over a budget. We will then run through the reconciliation process and look at the reports available to you that you've got for helping you to reconcile. So there's different ways that you can reconcile, and probably will take the different ways depending on how large your property is and how many schedules and expenses you've got. Okay, so we are in my test account. We're in a property called Commercial House, and we are here on the service charge tab and on the budgets tab. I've got a budget set up and it's all approved and has some invoices already. And what we will see here, just to refresh, we've got our summary screen, our detail screen, and our report screen. And just a quick reminder that again, you can expand and collapse down here. So you're getting an overview by schedule, whereas we can expand each schedule or collapse each schedule one at a time for an easy view. The same with the detail tab. You can expand and collapse these as you wish as well. And a quick reminder that you have relevant service charge reports on the reports tab. It's always, if you're in the service charge, I would say it's a good place to run the reports from, because it knows which budget, which service charge and which property and everything that you're running the report for, so you don't have to enter any of the selection criteria. But these reports here are exactly the same reports and will give you exactly the same information as if you had run them from the reports menu, but you just have the added benefit that you don't have to type in the selection criteria. Because you're on a particular budget, it will automatically run the report for that particular budget. Okay, so we're in our approved budget, and we're going to assume that it's that the service charge year was from the 1st of January to the 31st of December last year, and I am now ready to reconcile, although a bit late probably. So the one thing that we can do is we can use this rollover budget button, and this will give us our starting point for our next year's budget. So I can change my description to 2020 budget. It knows that the starting date is the 1st of January 2020. I can put my end date in. And then what we have the option of doing is increasing your budget by a percentage at the moment here, or you can just change the figures, your budget figures over here. So I'm just going to show you that if I increase it by 5%, this is across the board, you'll notice that all of these will populate by 5%, and each of your budget items will have increased by 5%. So you can then either override and say this particular one is going up 10%, and we could say this one is just going to be this amount. So you'll see you have the option to either change it by or increase it or reduce it if you need to by a percentage across the board, individually overriding for each chart of account or schedule, or each individual figure. You can just type the new figure, and then you simply just press rollover budget. And here we're in our new rolled over budget, and it's in a draft status, so we can go through and we can then add any additional expense codes that you might have, or take any out that aren't going to be in the next year's budget. We can change our schedules and do everything as we could do before. Okay. And if we go back to our property, you'll see we've now got our next year's budget sitting there in draft mode. Okay, so that's rollover budget. If we now go back into our 2019 budget, which is all approved and ready to go, the first step that we're going to do is the close budget. So by pressing this close budget button, what you're actually doing is you are freezing the service charge period. So if I close that budget now, what you'll see it tells you is any invoices entered after the budget closed will be included in the following budget reconciliation, even if the invoice is related to the current budget, and I do want to close it. So that's just confirming that if now me or somebody else in my company puts on, for example, a supplier invoice, and that supplier invoice relates to the 2019 budget period, because my budget is closed, it will not be included in this reconciliation. If I want it to be included, if I know that that has happened and I want it to be included in the reconciliation, I can reopen the budget. Reopening the budget will take the freeze off, and the budget will be back to an approved state again, and then I can reclose it and it will freeze it as of the new time and stop any other new items going into the budget, so that they will be saved until the next year. Okay, so after you've closed your budget, you press the reconcile budget button. So we have a little wizard for the reconciliation process to take you nicely through all of the steps that need to be done. So if we press reconcile, here at the top you'll see, oh goodness me, sorry, it's because I've been messing about in here. Let's go into reconcile. I'm just going to take you back. Right, sorry, we're at the start of our reconciliation process. And what you've just seen there is the fact that you can leave the reconciliation process at any stage throughout the wizard, and it will just remember where you are, so that you can come back and finish it off and carry on from where you had got up to. Okay, so I just went and undid everything that I'd previously reconciled. Okay, so the first step in our reconciliation is reconciling the schedules and the expenses that have gone through the schedule. So if we have a look here, you'll see we can expand each schedule item one by one, and then we get a list of each of our expense codes. We can see the budgeted cost here and our actual expenditure, and we can zoom in here to see the invoices and credit notes that make up that expenditure. So I've got 3 cleaning invoices here. So this is one way that we can check that we've got the right information for our expenses. Now I'm now going to duplicate my screen, and just take you back to our property. Sorry. Yeah. So what we're going to do now, so on this tab, I'm at the stage that we were at, reconciling and looking at the expenses. I'm just going to give you the other option that you can do, which is very, very useful, and is running the expenses report. So again, if we do it from this reports tab, we can run the service charge expense report. You can see it populates all our selection criteria automatically for us. Now, this report is very useful because it can help you to pick up miscodings or missed invoices or duplicate invoices that may have been entered. So if, again, it splits it out schedule by schedule and chart of account code by chart of account code. So here we're looking at schedule 1, first of all cleaning, and I can see I have those three cleaning invoices that we looked at when we zoomed in on the previous screen. Repairs and maintenance, I've got an invoice in there. Utilities, and so it's kind of an easy way, especially if your descriptions are sort of monthly generic like this, we can kind of go through and see, yeah, I've got January to March, April to June, July to September. I haven't got my October to December invoice yet, so I may want to put an accrual in for it, and you can do that during the reconciliation process, and I will show you how to do that in just a moment. Okay, so that's our schedule 1. Schedule 2 is our lift schedule. Again, we can check our invoices, same for schedule 3 for our insurance. Then we come to the bottom section, which can be very, very useful, and it gives you a list of chart of accounts not included in the budget. So I can actually see I've got owner disbursements here. That's absolutely expected, wouldn't be included in the budget. It's just for information, showing you all of the expense invoices that have been coded through the service charge period that aren't included in the budget. So I can kind of look at that and notice that this is a valid invoice that should not be included in the budget. This one, however, looks to me like it potentially has been miscoded. Additional cleaning to bins. I mean, it might be that it's a direct recharge to the tenant or something like that. And again, in which case it's a valid item not to be included in the budget. But for me, on first glance, this one I think probably should be included in the budget. So I can go into my invoice. You can see it opens it up in a separate tab. I can see it's on commercial house, and I can see it's somebody has coded this and picked up the wrong cleaning code. So this is a cleaning code that isn't included in my budget, whereas this is the cleaning code that should be included in the budget. So I'm going to recode this. And save my invoice. If I then come back to this report, and if I refresh the report, and if we go and have a look, we should see that it's now not down here. It's been put in our schedule 1 cleaning. We've now got 4 invoices. So you can see how easy it is to correct coding issues. Now, this very last section also shows you invoices that relate to the period that are sitting at a status of draft or awaiting approval. Now, it could be a valid reason why you haven't approved it, because there's a query on the invoice and it's not approved, because the service charge will only include approved or paid invoices in its reconciliation. So by leaving this as awaiting approval, it's not going to be included in the budget, which you probably wouldn't want if there was a dispute over whether you should be paying it or not. Alternatively, it could be that you just have missed approving it for whatever reason, and in which case you can zoom into it and if we go here, and then we can just approve it if we wanted to. So I will do that. If we then come back to our expenses report, so you can see that's still down there. If I refresh my screen, we don't have it down there anymore. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. So now we've got 5 invoices included in our expense for service for cleaning. So if we flip back to here, if I refresh my screen, one, two, and we can now see that I've got 5 invoices have been included. Now, you may have noticed our expense total here has gone up to 2,100. We've got a little problem at the moment that it's not showing the revised figure, but it does carry through correctly, and I have that logged as a bug, and that will be picked up and corrected hopefully in the next week or so. So just to confirm, you can zoom into your invoice to have a look at the actual invoice details, and we can close. Now, once you've gone through the process, either whether you're doing it here on screen or through the expenses report, and you've made any adjustments that you need to, you can mark as complete, and that means that you're happy that your expense figures are correct. You can either do it schedule by schedule, or you can do the whole lot together. So you can see I can do that. And this one has gone green, so that's completed. I could do each one separately, or I could just do mark all as complete, and it will do them all as complete. When they're complete, you get the little tick and everything goes green, then it's all happy. So I've now reconciled my schedules and my expenses. I can go on to the next stage in the wizard, which is reconciling the areas or the income for the areas. So again, you can see we've got each area down here, and then I'm just going to expand each one singly just to make it a little clearer on screen. So we can see that our 5th floor, we can see what our area expenditure is. So there's the total expenditure, this area's expenses split down by each schedule, and then it tells you who's been occupying, how many days, and you can see that Aaron Abraham was in for 205 days, and then it was vacant for 160 days. So this total area expenditure is being prorated between Aaron Abraham for his 205 days, and then the client will be liable for the vacant area for the 160 days. And we can also see that Aaron Abraham has been invoiced £3,200, so he is due a credit of 1,369. Okay, so that, I'm just going to quickly shut down some of these tabs. What we're going to do now is we are going to, sorry, let's shut them down. Lovely. Okay. I'm going to duplicate again, and we are going to, on the second screen, go to the reports tab, and we're going to look at the income report. So just to remind you, we are looking at income for the 5th floor, Aaron Abraham, and we can see here the amount that he's been invoiced. So if I open that out, I can see on here that we've got a duplicate invoice for the January to March period. So I've kind of just set you up some different examples to try and show you the sort of things that could happen, and how you might easily be able to pick them up. And we can, what looks to me like this one, because it's got all the nice sort of description, has been generated automatically from our service charge template. And it looks like for some reason, somebody has raised a one-off ad hoc charge for that period as well, and therefore it's been duplicated. So you have the option to go into the invoice, check it out. You could either void it if it's unpaid, if it's it is just a duplicate. It may be it's been raised but it hasn't actually been sent out, or it may be that it relates to a different period. So you can just correct the situation, or it could be for whatever reason, maybe there are meant to be two lots of £800. So I'm going to show you the same thing on the income report. Again, because we're running it from the budget, we don't have to enter any information. So we start off with Aaron Abraham, and so you can see we're seeing a very similar view to what we were looking at on screen, and I can zoom in to this invoice here. And I could go in here and I could actually realise that that was completely set up in error, it hasn't been sent out, so I can just void my invoice. So we've voided our invoice. If we then refresh our report, and you can see it's now updated with the correct figures. So this is a really nice way that you can easily check for, you know, that you've paid, that you've invoiced all of your periods. So also, and this is just for information, it will tell you in this column whether it's been paid or not, but it will show paid and unpaid. So if we then go on to the first floor north, we've got Cross Brothers, who are in for the whole period, and we can see that they're being charged 6 monthly, and that all looks good to me. Barney Rubble in for the whole year, and he's been charged for all 4 quarters, and that looks all good to me. Then we come down to Connie Com, and again, it looks to me like she has a duplicate invoice. So you can see we've got the January to March, April to June, July to September, and then again, for whatever reason, we've invoiced twice for the December period. Now I'm just going to go through the same process and void this invoice, because in my example, it hadn't been printed, it was just a mistake. It could be a valid reason or not. So now you'll see that she's just has her 4 invoices being contributed. Okay, you'll then see any vacant areas, whether they've had any invoices or not. And the last section is any client contributions. So if you have been charging your client throughout the service charge year for, in this case, we've done a void top up, or for any capping costs, and you've charged it up front to the tenant, to the landlord, they will appear under the client contributions section so that you can see the amount of income. And you can see we just have a little summary at the bottom. Okay, so that is our income section. Right, now do you remember, before we go on, just to clear, if we refresh that, so, okay, here we can again mark each individual one as complete. Again, it goes green with a little tick, and you can go through the process. Now, I would just want to show you this one. So our Cross Brothers, what we can see is the Cross Brothers is in first floor north. There's an area allocation expenditure of 3,411, but you can see that Cross Brothers has a cap of 3,000. So that's his expenses cap, and he's been invoiced 3,000. So there is a shortfall of £411.15, which you will see in the next step will be charged on to the client. Right, now I just want to mark all of this as complete. So you can see now we're at the stage where we've reconciled all our schedules, all our expenses and our areas. Now, I don't know if you remembered me saying when we were reconciling the expenses that on one of the expenses, we wanted to account for an accrual. And I said, I'll show you that later. So what I'm wanting to show you at this stage is how you can easily go back. So you see this back button. So it will take us back to the schedules, and it's unreconciled everything for us, or marked everything, unmarked it all as complete. So you can go back, start again. Now I just have to remind myself who, there's a name, it was the utilities, wasn't it? Yes, so we've looked in here that we actually haven't got our gas invoice for our period from October to December. So I'm going to put an accrual in for that. And the way I'm going to do it is I am going to do, so we don't have a specific option to handle accruals, but this is the way that you can handle accruals. So we're going to do a new expense invoice. It's commercial house, and it's British Gas. And I would probably recommend that you always use the last date of your service charge period. And this is gas, accrual. And now I can't even remember what was the gas amount. So it looks like between 1,200 and 1,500 a quarter. So I'm going to say, oh, goodness me, go away. Oh, sorry, I've got this Zoom menu that keeps popping up and getting in the way of my tabs. Let's just move that down a bit. Sorry, everybody. Okay, let's flip back to my expense invoice. Gas accrual. So I am going to assume it's 1,200. Sorry, it was utilities. So this is my utilities code in the budget. And I'm going to approve that invoice. I am then going to do a new expense credit note. Again, it's commercial house, British Gas, and this is going to be 1/1/20, the first day of my new service charge period. Reversal of gas accrual is going to be 1,200. We're going to pick our utilities code. We're going to save and approve, and then we're going to allocate this to 1,200 to this one. Here we are, 1,440. You perhaps wouldn't have accrued with VAT, sorry, so probably would have been better to have put no VAT. And we will save our allocations. So we have put an accrual through for this. So if I refresh the screen, and if we go into our utilities, what we need to do, good point, is because we've added a new invoice, it's not included in the budget because it's closed and what we need to do is reopen our budget to allow that invoice to be back in there, and then we can reclose our budget. If we go back to reconcile, we should, oh, where's my invoice? Here we are. I've got my accrual in here. Okay, and again, we're just seeing our little problem that it's updating our expenses here, but it's just not showing the updated expenses here, but that will be sorted. So I've now got my accrual put in. I'm going to mark all as complete, go on to my income side, and we'll mark all of the income as complete. So we've reconciled all our expenses and we're happy we've got all our accruals in, that we have all our invoices are coded correctly, we're not missing anything, we've not duplicated anything. The same would go for any prepayments if you needed to take anything out. And just one thing to say, we do have a little crib sheet for you for how you can handle accruals and prepayments between the service charge. And if you want that crib sheet, if you can just let Natalia know, she can get that sent out to you. So we've reconciled our expenses, we've reconciled our income. We're now going to look at our client contribution. So the next step is to see, okay, let's make sure that we are happy with, we understand what the client is paying for. So this top area is any under or over recovery. So that's basically if your percentages don't add up to 100%, that will be covered here. All our percentages add up to 100, so the client's not contributing to anything for that. But what we can see is broken down by area. We can see that there was the vacant period of 160 days. So he's paying for that. He's paying that £411 capping costs for the Cross Brothers. And then we've got a 56-day vacant period for the ground floor, and the second floor is vacant for the whole year. So he has to pay for the whole lot. So our total client contribution is that amount. So at the moment we've just got this on screen, but soon we will be looking to have this available as a report, because I think it would be very useful for clients to be able to get this breakdown. So I can now mark this as complete and go on to my next step. Right, so this next screen is our reconciliation summary. It just shows you the expenses, what you've already invoiced to the tenants, the balancing charges that are going to be raised, and the client contribution. So we can click next and move on to generate those balancing charges. See, at this stage, it is saying to you, once you go past this step, you can't use the back button anymore. So you're kind of saying you're happy with everything, and you're going to generate the balancing charges as we've seen in previous steps what they're going to be. Now normally with this situation you wouldn't want to continue, but for the process so that you can see the balancing charges, I am going to confirm that. So what you'll see now, can you see you've lost the back button? Okay, so we are seeing the tenants who are going to receive, so in this case they're all receiving credit notes, and I think we can see that's because the corrections that we made or adjustments we made weren't carried forward. What we can do here is select our defaults for how we are going to charge those tenants. So it's defaulted our balancing service charge, which we would want, defaulted to 20% on VAT because this is on a net basis. It's saying what template do we want to default it on, so that's our PDF template, and what ledger do we want it to come to. So we want it to come out of our commercial ledger, commercial house ledger. And then So we can select all of those, and then we have our balancing charge to our client, and we just need to select again, so whether we are charging, probably not charging VAT to him, our PDF template and commercial. Okay, so you can see, you can scroll back and forward to see what you've actually got selected. Once you've selected everything, or you don't have to select everything, so this is, you are ticking to select to generate the balancing charges. Okay, you do have the option to not generate the balancing charges. Personally, I wouldn't recommend that. I think if for whatever reason you don't want to generate the balancing charges, so you've agreed with the tenant for, or whatever, that you're not going to generate a balancing charge, personally, I think you should generate the balancing charge as normal from this process and raise a credit note to allocate against it. But it is up to you. Okay, so once I've got everything selected, I can click generate, and it's just confirming it's going to create 3 credit notes and 1 invoice to the client. And what you'll notice on the left hand side, it just says processing. And it will say processing for, sometimes it's only a couple of seconds, and sometimes it's a minute or so. I think it depends how many that it's trying to create. So you can see we've now got my invoices that have been created. So I've got 3 balancing credits and 1 balancing invoice, which I can zoom in to have a look at that balancing service charge. Okay, so what we will see now is we've got a finalize button, so I can finalize that they've all been done. Okay, and once we've finalized, you'll see we've got a new tab appeared called balancing charges, and what you can see on this tab is you have a history that you can see the balancing charges here that have gone to the tenant and any balancing charge that has gone to the client, and they stay there forever so that you can see that. If we then go on to reports, what we can see is we have a new report, our service charge statement, which if we just generate these, sorry, I'm going to go down here. We have a look at here. So it's a bit like the budget certificate, but it's the reconciliation basically. So it's showing all the expenses, the total expenses, their proportion and their adjusted proportion. So they've got an adjusted proportion because this particular tenant was only in for 205 days. So here's their total expenses. Then we can see their total invoices. So it's been invoiced here. And then we can see the little balancing bit at the bottom and the fact that he got a credit for £578. And those are available, one for each tenant in their own PDF. So that is it for the reconciliation process. If we now go back to property, we will see that particular service charge has been reconciled. You can always go into it and have a look at all the information that will stay there forever. And just to remind you that you can refine your list by choosing to look at just reconciled or just approved, or you can have all. So that's it for service charge reconciliation and reporting. I think I probably will run additional sessions on service charge, certainly as we enhance the functionality. And I know that we've had a question about to go more in depth on cost classifications. I think we've probably run out of time for that today, but I think that can certainly be covered in a separate session, and I'll arrange with Natalia to get something set up for that. But that's it from me.
Huge thank you to Joe for running all the service charge sessions. If you missed the last one on setup, then that's going to be set with all the other refresh webinars on the Knowledge Hub, so you can go on and check those. I'd also encourage you to go back and check out my email from yesterday. As I said, there's some really useful content that the team here have put together for you. But otherwise, we wish you a very nice and quiet and restful Easter that's coming up. Thanks, guys. See ya.